what I want to do is take a couple of minutes to go through this presentation before you start looking at your work. As we transition and we learn dividing polynomial expressions, we're now going to dividing polynomial expressions. So that's kind of the lesson, that's kind of the focus. I want to make sure you can divide using long division and that you understand that it's not a closed operation. I'm not worried about the key standards for you to learn them or memorize them. I put them there just so you'll see this is what it comes to the teacher of what we're supposed to be teaching and evaluating. So you see the key word rewrite. A lot of times you'll see the word rewrite. Don't be scared of that word. It's just another way to look at it, But it wants you to write it in the form of a quotient with a remainder. A quotient with a remainder. So let's take a look here. Let me get my annotation down real quick and let's go to blue. Now, we're going to practice today dividing larger algebraic expressions. But I first want you to think about, how do I deal with long division numbers? Now, if you remember right, if I had a long division, this is the dividend right here. The dividend is under the long division symbol. This is the divisor. Here's your divisor. And that's your quotient. And this is your remainder. None of that's changed. All these things are very similar that we're working through. So as long as you remember the key words that I'm referring to, it'll help you remember. So let's take a look and let's see how we did long division. We first looked at this 21, and most of you do this in your head, and you say, well, it won't go into 2, but it will go into 28. So you say 21 will go into 28 one time, and that's where the 1 came from. And you wrote 21 here. But really what you were doing is 1 times 21 is 21. That's really what you're doing. You're going 1 times 21 is where you got that 21. And then you subtracted it, if you remember, 28 minus 21, and you got 7. And then you brought down to 3. And then you said, okay, let me go through the same process. How many 21s will go into 73? And you got 3. And you multiplied the 3 by 21. You got 63. You put the 63 over here. You subtracted it. You got 10. You brought down this 5. And you did the same thing. You said, well, 5 times 21 is 105. You subtracted. You got a 0 remainder. That was how we did long division. Okay, I think you did that 5th or 6th grade, and you practiced going over the long division. But now what I want you to transition over to as we go into Algebra 2, I want to figure out, how do I do long division with polynomial expressions? The pattern is very similar, so I'm going to work through this. It may be overwhelming at first. We'll go through another example afterwards, and we'll let you do some practice work. But I want you just to watch it, and let's see what I do here. So first, I write the expression long division form, which means here's my here's my dividend right here. My dividend is right there. There it is right here. This is my divisor. Here's my division symbol. Okay. And then I look at this first term. I look at the first term, and I divide it by the first term. The first term of the dividend, the first term of the divisor. X cubed divided by x is x squared. Okay. Then I take that x squared and I line it up right here over the other x squared. Okay. Let's look at that one more time just to make sure. Let's clear all the drawings. I take this first term and I divide it by this first term right over here. And then I get x squared, and I take this x squared and I put it right here. Just like we did in division. Just like we did in division. And here's where I'm at. The first number of the quotient is on top of the divisor sign. That's how you start this process. That's how we go through it. And let's see what we do next. So Let me switch to the next slide here. So let's take a look. What's the next step? And like I said, I've already loaded these slides for you, so don't worry too much about it right now. Okay, now I have the x squared up here now. What I have to do now is I have to take this x squared and I have to multiply it by this binomial. I have to multiply it by this binomial. So x squared times x cubed, x squared times 2 is 2x squared. And then I take this whole term and I put it under the dividend. Okay, so let's walk through that. I take the x squared term, multiply it by the x plus 2. Remember distribution, don't forget that. I obtain this number here and I put it under there. And then all I do is subtract. So I put my minus, parentheses. This minus this is 0. It will always be 0 because you're getting rid of that. 4 minus 2 is 2. And I bring down the x. Okay, that's the pattern that we're doing. That is the exact pattern. So what we're going to do next is the same pattern. So let's clear this. Let's go to the next slide here. Let's take a look. So now I did the same thing. I took the first term. Now I'm below it. I was up here, remember? But now I'm the first term here. I'm under this line. Think of it as this line here. I'm under it. So I take this first term and still divide it by that same first term. So 2x squared divided by x gives me 2x. I take that 2x and I put it as the second number. So first number of this number divided by here leaves me with 2x, and I put it as the second number of the quotient. That's the pattern. That's the pattern. Dividing, placing, multiplying, subtracting. You'll see the same pattern as we go. So then I go to the next step here. And like I said, I'm just going through this real quickly, then we'll revisit the problem. Let's take a look now. So now what did I do now? Well, I needed to take this 2x, and I did the same thing. When I multiplied it over here, I took the 2x and I multiplied it over here again. Same thing, 2x squared plus 4x. I put it here this time, and then I did the same subtracting. This minus this is 0. X minus 4x is negative 3x, and I brought down the negative 6. Same steps. I took the 2x, multiplied here. I remembered my distribution property. I obtained a result. I put it right here, and I subtracted it and continued on to here. So what do we do next? Well, we do the same process. Let's take a look at it. Let's see here. So you repeat this process. So I take this 3x. I take first term again. I'm still this first term under the line. First term divided by first term right here. Negative 3x divided by x is negative 3. I place that third number right here. I place that third number here, and then I do the same thing. I go over here and I multiply it again. And I get negative 3x minus 6. I'm just multiplying. I'm doing the same process each time as I would do in division. And then what I'm left with, when all is said and done, I'm left with the dividend. That's what we're dividing. The divisor, that's what we are dividing by. The quotient, that's our answer up here. And the remainder. Now, if there was a remainder, let's say you got a 4 there, because you could get a remainder. If you get a remainder, all you have to do is put that remainder over the divisor. X plus 2. And that's why this is not closed, because this creates what's known as a rational expression, where you have a variable under the denominator, or in the denominator. Okay? So that's the process. So let's go to the next slide. And now let's work through this together. And if you have a scratch sheet of paper, it may help you so that you can work through it with me. I'll try not to go too fast. I'll just walk through it as I'm thinking and doing it at the same time. So let me think. So I want to look at this first number here, this x cubed. So I'm going to write it over here so I can help myself not be confused. X cubed divided by x. I get x squared. I took the first term right here, this first term, and divided by the first term. X cubed divided by x. That's 3 x's on top, 1 x on the bottom. I'm left with x squared, which is 2 x's. So I take that and I put it right here. And notice I am lining it up with the same exponent. You don't want to put it here because you won't know when to stop. And you don't want to put it here because you may go too far. So I take that x squared term, I take this first term here, I take it and I multiply it by this binomial here. X squared times x gives me x cubed. If you do it right, these will always be the same. X squared times 3 is plus 3x squared. I put my parentheses. I put my subtraction sign. I draw my line. This minus this will always be 0 if you're doing it correctly. 2 minus 3 is negative x squared. I bring down my next term, minus x. And now I'm under the line again, so I'm going to go the same process again. So here's my first term, and here's my first term. So negative x squared divided by x. I receive the answer negative x, because that's 2 of them up here, and that's 1 of them here. So I'm left with 1 and the negative. I bring that right here, negative x. The second number in the quotient. Then I take the same negative x, and now I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to multiply it by this binomial. Negative x times x is negative x squared. Negative x times 3 is negative 3x. I put my parentheses. I subtract. Negative minus minus is positive, so this is 0, and that's what we want. That's what we want. Negative minus negative, that becomes positive, so this is 2x. Be careful with your signs. I bring down the 6. Same thing, I'm with my first term again. So 2x divided by x is simply x. I bring the x up here. I distribute it one more time. X times x. I'm sorry, x divided by x. Y'all didn't correct me here. That's okay. I made a mistake, which I do sometimes. Well, that's 2, Mr. Griffin. That's not x. So we erase that. We make mistakes. We all do. So I'll put a 2 up there now. 2 times x is 2x. Now notice it because it wasn't the same thing. See, it happens sometimes. These have to be the same thing if you've done it correctly. 2 times 3 is 6. I put my parentheses, minus, and I get 0 remainder. So when this thing is all done, I have my dividend, x cubed plus 2x squared minus x plus 6. I have my divisor, x plus 3. I have my quotient, x squared minus x plus 2. And I have my remainder, 0.